So, Dad's got the Deltarune finally has the next 2 chapters in the story, and my god, it's peak. Hell, it's so peak I literally cannot wait for next year when Chapter 5 drops, and judging by just how much is in these current new chapters, you can bet Chapter 5 is going to be a frickin' gourmet meal. But I'm already getting ahead of myself. Welcome back to Sanity Reviews, where I review games or game updates and slap them up onto my completely objective seal of approval scale. With today's episode, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to review each of the new chapters separately in this video, and then give an overall score at the end for the 2 chapters. Sound good? Well, if not, then too bad, it's my show. Also, if it wasn't obvious, heavy spoiler warning. If you're still trying to avoid spoilers even after like 2 weeks of the game already being out, now's your chance to leave. First, we start with Chapter 3. I will say I anticipated Chapter 3 to kind of play out somewhat similarly to Chapter 2, but what I wasn't expecting is how that previous formula was pretty much flipped onto its head in Chapter 3. We're immediately introduced to Tenna, who, shall I say, is an absolute highlight in this chapter. Apparently Toby was worried people would view Tenna as like a diet version of Spamton, but I never really saw him like that. From the moment I saw that fully rendered VHS intro, I knew that we were dealing with quite possibly my favorite chapter-specific antagonist yet in this game. I was hoping you'd ask. Mike, play the VHS! Mike? What the fuck?
Coming straight from your house.
Coming straight from your house. He's the one. The king of. Oh, he's groovy and never groovy. You can't get it from an egg. The sensation of your screen. The show that makes you scream. Say it with it, folks. Mr. Antenna's TV show.
Okay, Mr. ARG.
Huh?
Oh my god, it's pyrocynical.
I can now see why this took like 5 years. Holy shit. On top of that, too, I also wasn't expecting there to be a lot of game-within-the-game shenanigans in this chapter, but that's kind of about half the chapter here. I personally found them to be pretty interesting as it takes a concept of a game show and turns it into something completely different. Now, one thing I will mention is that in this chapter, and this chapter alone, you can only use the Dark Dollars at the start and end of the chapter, and are forced to use points in order to purchase items. You gain these points by basically playing the game boards that Tenna sets up, and it encourages you to play well and explore the game boards to make sure they have a good amount of points to blow on items. Some might see this as a little pointless, no pun intended, and so did I at first, but after playing through it a few times I appreciated the different system, even if it only lasts for like 1 chapter. There thankfully are still combat encounters during these game boards, so it's not like you're just wandering around doing these little mini-games. Speaking of mini-games, at the end of each board is a physical challenge, which serves as the final trial before the end of the game board. There's 3 of them, however, one of them is locked away and you can only use it as like a bonus fuck-around board. And at the end of each board is a total score, which unlocks certain things in the green room. Of course, to get access to the secret boss stuff, you have to play well, and I do mean very well. But once that's done, and we escape from Tenna, we get a look at the illustrious TV world, which is absolutely fabulous, dare I say. It reminds me of a mix of the core from Undertale and Cyber City, and the amount of goofy hijinks that you get into around this place is just absolutely just awesome. I love it. And let's not forget about the climactic showdown against Tenna himself. I love this boss. The theme, the design, the fast-paced WarioWare-esque flow that this boss has towards the end. And then after that we fight the literal knight. You know, the knight that's been referenced a lot in the previous 2 chapters. Yeah, we face them as the real secret boss, if you will. I'll say the fight is alright, but it's absolutely brutal if you plan on actually trying to fight them. And then, that's Chapter 3. If I were to rate it, I'd give it a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. It has a great story flow, fantastic chapter antagonist, and obviously awesome music, and of course the dramatic reveal of the true antagonist of the whole game showing up just basically out of nowhere is pretty damn cool. The only downside I can think of is that there isn't really too much to explore in the first half outside of the game boards, and they can sometimes feel pretty sluggish after a little while. But now we get into Chapter 4. This one is a bit longer than the previous one, with the first bit of this chapter being dedicated to finding clues on how to enter the bunker while attending church service, and then later finding the Dark World at that very same church. This Dark World, and the whole chapter in general, seems to serve as the real jumping-off point for the story, as, well, now that the Knight is aware of us, the journeys ahead are bound to get tougher, and this place shows that in strides. There's no chapter antagonist here aside from the Knight, and the area design is actually very haunting, yet extremely beautiful. It fits the vibe of a church world extremely well, with pianos, organs, books, and bells found basically everywhere. And let's not forget about the absolute highlight of this chapter, Gerson. This chapter is very clearly Susie focused, with Gerson serving as the main catalyst for Susie's growth throughout the entire chapter. Hell, he's even the secret boss who effectively trains Susie to enhance her healing magic through a pure physical trial. I'll say it here and now. Gerson is just the best boss so far in Deltarune, and one of the best characters given a chance to shine in this game. And after sealing the first fountain, Susie makes another one since the main section of the church has been locked off. And of course, it's a very different style, even having different colors, a different theme, and a statue of Gerson being the main boss at the end. We do find our way into the main part of the church finally, and we get this absolutely stunning visual surrounding the entrance. I love stuff like this, because it gives the sense of finality in a place like this just so well. But when we do reach the Knight, we are introduced to the real boss of this chapter, the 1000 a Titan. This boss is actually pretty awesome as well, with the first phase being this massive climb to try and reach it as its shell cracks and falls away, a mini phase where we fight the spawns of the Titan, and then finally we reach the Titan's head and beat the hell out of it until Gerson shows up for the final send-off to the chapter. Now, of course, I didn't get into absolutely everything with this chapter, as there's a ton of moving parts to make this chapter work. You just really have to play it yourself in order to get the full feeling of just how amazing this chapter was, because if I were to get into everything, then this review would probably be about an hour long, and I don't think anybody has the time for that. Overall, Chapter 4 gets the first ever 5 out of 5 stars. I genuinely struggle to find any problems with this chapter at all. There's really nothing to complain about. The chapter's visuals are absolutely amazing, the growth, the character development of Susie is absolutely fantastic, and overall, it's just a genuinely awesome chapter. And something tells me that if the rest of the game is going to keep up this energy, then I might have to adjust the scale to really judge the later chapters properly. But now we get into the overall score of both chapters, and it's a 4.7 out of 5 stars. The third chapter is delightfully silly with only a few problems that stem from the game boards, and Chapter 4 is a beautiful jumping off point for the true story to unfold. Keep it up, Toby. This shit is absolute peak. But anyway, this has been Stell, and I'll see you next time.